Welcome to Badger State Ball, the official show of Prep Baseball Wisconsin. We've got our four big Wisconsin people on the call. Really excited for the launch of this podcast. We've got Vinny Rotino, Andy Soroka, and Josh Fields, along with myself, David Go. We're going to talk about what the podcast will be, what we're going to be talking about, what we hope to highlight in the episode, and talk about some of the latest happenings around Wisconsin, the Badger State. But before we get too deep into the episode, I wanted to take some time to introduce ourselves, who we are, what our backgrounds are, and maybe why some of the other ones are qualified to talk about baseball. Perhaps nobody more qualified to talk about baseball than Vinny Rotino, who's on the call here, or on the episode here right now. Vinny, could you start out by introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, David. Vinny Rotino, played 14 years professionally. I'm from the Badger State here in Wisconsin, born and raised here, went to Racine St. Catherine's High School, went to UW La Crosse, a Division III school, then played 14 years professionally, scouted for the Texas Rangers for 4 years, now on the Brewers broadcast team. I'm just really excited to be part of this podcast. I am now also the Wisconsin scouting director for Prep Baseball as well. I failed to mention that, but really excited for this podcast. Thanks for the intro, David.
Mm-hmm. And Andy, you oversee more content, but you've got a baseball background too. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been at the company, Prep Baseball, for going on 7 years now, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. But 5 of those years, it's been a primary focus of mine, like to follow the prospects here in Wisconsin. And it's been really, really rewarding for me because, like, I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I actually just didn't have much familiarity at all with the baseball up here. So it's been super eye-opening, and like the people up here are great, like the programs up here are great, and then the players too. There's just much more talent here than you would ever expect, I guess, or at least I did when I was growing up. So being able to be a part of this, just kind of find, identify, promote the players in this state for the last 5+ years, like it's been really, really cool. And even though like my responsibilities here, I think have kind of like shifted, I do a little bit more like nationally for us now, but I still can't quit the baseball here in Wisconsin. So I'm just pumped that I could continue to contribute in this way in the form of this podcast, and like excited to see where we go from here.
Yeah, and you've definitely seen Josh Fields at a field. You maybe have seen Vinny or Andy around, and they do a lot with the company, and a lot also sometimes behind the scenes work. And Josh Fields does too. But Josh Fields, it seems like, is at every baseball field in the state of Wisconsin. Fields, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Josh Fields. I've been with the company since 2022 after playing for 4 years collegiately inside the state at Bryan Stratton, a local JUCO. Ever since 2022, I've stayed on with Prep Baseball and have just been seeing my role grow throughout the years I've been here. And with that, I've seen the talent in the state like grow and get better throughout the years too. Like just, it's been really nice to see like just local kids seeing the talent in baseball in the state get better.
And you saw, I mean, even we talk about growth in the state. You were at Bryan and Stratton for the first year of the program. Is that right?
Second year.
Second year. Okay. So you saw that program grow, and of course now has produced some really good players, and definitely a staple in Wisconsin, in the Milwaukee area in recruiting. And I'm David Go. I played collegiately for 3 years at a few different schools. I actually got recruited to my first school partly because of Prep Baseball. I got contacted by one of the coaches who said he was going through video and rankings and data on Prep Baseball Report on our website. And he saw my video, saw some of the metrics that we didn't have as many metrics at that point, but some of the metrics, and was intrigued, went there and had a visit and got an offer, played, that was Concordia St. Paul, played there for a year and played a couple other places, MATC here in Wisconsin. So Prep Baseball does help you get recruited, and that's partly what we're here to do. We want to help shine a light on players who deserve to be recruited, who have worked hard to play college baseball and are good enough, have the talent to play college baseball, because there is a lot of baseball talent in Wisconsin. What we'll do on this podcast is, in addition to highlighting some of the uncommitted players, we'll also talk about our rankings, talk about why we chose to have players in certain spots. We'll talk about some of the good committed players and maybe even guys who have a chance of playing professionally or who are playing professionally but were at one point Prep players in Wisconsin. Our goal is to promote amateur baseball. We want to highlight high school baseball, junior college baseball, and NCAA or NAIA 4-year university baseball. Vinny, obviously you've got your hands all over the state, and you've really served at every level and every baseball capacity in the state. Do you have anything to add on what you hope to do with this podcast?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the goal of what prep baseball is. I mean, even on a national stage, it's in every state at this point. And so what prep baseball does, and especially here in Wisconsin, it does an exceptional job of shining that bright light on players who want to play at that next level, right? So we talk about that all the time at our showcase circuits, anytime parents or players even come up to us and want to talk about what prep baseball does. And that's what we do in a nutshell, is we want to shine that bright light on the player. And it's ultimately really, really important to do so in a cold weather state like Wisconsin. I mean, I played in the late 90s. I'm aging myself a little bit here, but I played in the late 90s, and there was probably 3 or 4 players that played at the Division I level from the state of Wisconsin, from high school baseball in the state of Wisconsin. Why? Cold weather, scouts, recruiters, they didn't want to come and get snowed out, right? Drive halfway across the country or fly in or something and then get snowed out. Prep baseball, what prep baseball does is allow players to be seen at the showcase level. The hyper local scouting services that we do provide, Josh Fields, Andy Soroka, David Go, myself, in the summer and the spring seasons, able to be hyper local and really scout and get to know the players on a very personal level, both on the field and off the field. So that's what we do. This podcast is an opportunity to really just kind of the culmination of that, and that's what we aim for with this podcast, is just to really bring it all together in the state and just get it out there and have people listen to this. And so that's really the main goal of the company, the main goal here in Wisconsin, and then the main goal on this podcast.
Yeah, there's so many players to highlight, and even I've seen progression. I mean, Fields graduated high school, 6 years ago now? I graduated high school 4 or 5 years ago. So there's been a progression even within these last few years of players really, really standing out in Wisconsin. I think around the country, but especially Wisconsin. Even Alan Roden and Drake Baldwin, they were organizational players of the year. And I wrote a little piece on them. I don't want to plug it too much, my work, but they were both from Wisconsin, of course, and the only other states that had multiple players from that to get that honor were guys for like California, Texas, Georgia. They were the only states that had multiple guys, and Wisconsin was the only cold weather state. So I think it's a testament to how good of baseball we have in the state.
Yep, Gavin Lux, JP Fireeisen just won World Series. It comes from all over too, and they're on opposite corners of the state. So you could tell it's not just one hub from southeastern Wisconsin. It's just a little bit of every corner of the state, which is I've always thought really cool. When we see somebody that gets us going from western Wisconsin that we'd never heard of before, it's it's fun. That's a really good feeling.
Yeah, and there is someone from western Wisconsin that we want to spend a little bit more time on. That was a breakout, probably the biggest breakout of our fall showcases. But a few other guys we want to highlight first before we talk more about Cooper Jesperson. At the Southern Wisconsin Open and at the Northern Wisconsin Open, both of the fall showcases. Fields, you had a couple guys at the Southern Wisconsin Open that really stood out to you, Bradley McCarthy, Jacob Madlung. What could you say about those two guys?
Yeah, both of those guys are right-handed arms, very similar operations. The arm works continuous, uninterrupted, fluid, and athletic for both of them. Madlung's a 28, McCarthy's a 26, sorry. But we've seen Bradley McCarthy work his fastball up to 88 this past summer, and getting to see him in showcase, getting to see that data was something that I was excited for going into the event. And Bradley McCarthy is just really interesting. Has a big sweeper, has a fastball that plays with life through the zone, and it's a two-pitch guy that if he adds a third, it could really change his outcome as a prospect and ultimately his evaluation from that day. Jacob Madlung is a 2028 from Arrowhead. he was injured throughout the summer, so we didn't get to see him. So this was basically our first look, and it was an ultra impressive look. It was 3 pitches for strikes. It was all over the zone, and just a pretty looking, clean arm, this guy is gonna be good for years to come. He's gonna be a name that we're gonna mention over and over again. It seems like.
With a guy who's a 2028, I mean, they're now they're freshmen only in high school. What do you look for? Because obviously these guys aren't going to be very polished, especially as arms. It sounds like Mad Lung is quite polished, but like, what do you look for as you're projecting 4 to 7, 8 years out if you're a college coach?
Yeah, so some things to look for right off the bat is the frame and the athlete. Like, can this frame get any better? Like, how much can I add to this frame weight-wise and physicality-wise? And then just how the guy move, like, his actions playing baseball. Like, does a big, easy thing for me is like, does he make baseball look really easy? And then if he does, he generally just has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, and I think it's always interesting. Like, that's one of the things that I like seeing is the progression of players. Vinny, you were there. You had a couple players that you were particularly impressed with. Could you highlight maybe 1 or 2 of those guys?
Yeah, Wes Descharme, forgive me, Wes, not understanding how to pronounce your name. But he really stood out. 6'2", 165 frame, really athletic-looking dude. Moves extremely well. Ran a 6.94. He's just a 2027 from Wanakee. And so the fact that he is such a good athlete with such a good frame, a projectable frame, you do love the ceiling from Wes. He's an outfielder, plays center field, 87 miles per hour from the outfield. He had the second best exit velo of the event at 92, 93 miles per hour off the bat. So just a ton of barrel feel for him with a short and compact swing. There's balance there. I mean, at the end of the day, he did not pitch at this event. At the end of the day, we're not real sure if this kid is going to be an arm because you really liked what we have seen from him off the bump too. But this is a very athletic, talented outfielder, and he showed out very, very well at the Southern Wisconsin Fall ID.
Mm-hmm. And another guy, Maddux Lessard, West Bend West, class of 2028, so another current freshman, but he was someone that also impressed at the Southern Wisconsin Open. He's only 140 pounds. He's 5'11". You can see the projection in his frame, but the actions are good defensively. The swing is smooth, and those are probably some of the things you look for as a hitter at that age where you think he's maybe going to develop a bit physically. At the Northern Wisconsin Open, we saw Cooper Jesperson, who was up to almost 95, who we're going to talk about more in a minute. I keep teasing that one. But a couple other guys, Will Nicolay, Mark Souza. What things did you see from those guys at the Northern Wisconsin Open, Vinny?
Yeah, so from Souza, I mean, talk about a projectable frame. I mean, this kid is long, he's loose, he's lanky, a very good athlete. I mean, ultimately, he's going to be a very good left-handed pitcher, and he's going to be one of the best prospects in the state, I think. I mean, there is extremely high ceiling. But the fact that he played such a good first base at this Northern Wisconsin Open, I mean, he's very clean, loose and athletic, very clean hands, fielding the baseball and fielding his position, but then the swing. I mean, he was also one of the top guys in terms of exit velo at this event, drove the ball over 300 feet a number of different times during his batting practice. So it is going to be an arm, but you love to see that from arms, the fact that he can handle himself from a position. So on the bump, it is a very, very clean delivery. It's fluid. You love how the arm works from such a big, tall, lanky frame guy. And usually left-handed pitchers are so late to develop and really refine themselves, but not here. It doesn't look like it here. He threw strikes. He was able to command the baseball to cross corner. There's a very tight breaking ball here. There's very good makings of a changeup as well. So a lot to like about Mark Souza. The ceiling is very high, and the sky is the limit for this kid.
Yeah, another Hudson kid, too, which is cool. I mean, they've just done a really good job lately. Coach Brent Blagan out there, like, they keep, like, getting him in, getting him out. Like, they've lost a few guys, but, like, seeing a guy like Mark Souza just pop right back up. He was someone we identified in the winter. He went to a Minnesota event, and obviously we keep in close contact with those guys. And I was actually surprised that, like, I felt like the velocity came a lot quicker than I would have anticipated from Mark, which is really cool to see, like, putting the work in. I think I totally agree with Vinny. Like one of the brightest prospects I think we saw this fall.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, guys from all around the state, Hudson, of course, being all the way on the western part of the state. Well, we'll talk about Cooper Jesperson now. We've waited long enough because he was the big standout of the fall. Again, showing up to the Northern Wisconsin Open. He had some injuries. Before we get too far into Jesperson, he's got a little bit of a unique background. Andy, could you give us a little bit of information about Jesperson as an athlete and as a baseball player?
Yeah, we heard some rumblings about him. He played for a Eau Claire area organization out there, so we saw him play, I think, in 2022, just at a tournament, one of our tournaments in like the Wisconsin Dells area, I believe. But either way, he was like kind of like this really like high level athlete. I think at the time we just heard that he was like primarily a basketball like kind of first prospect and like really good at it. So, but there was like a ton of like obvious reasons why like he had a bright future in baseball. Should he choose to like pursue that instead? Fast forward to 2023, the summer of 2023, we saw him at a showcase of ours in Eau Claire, and it was really good. Like he was just this phenomenal athlete, really bright future on the mound, maybe a little like unpolished, like that might even be harsh, but just you could tell that maybe his full focus wasn't yet on baseball, which is totally fine. It's almost like even more exciting to think about what there is to like get out of an athlete of that caliber. He spun a really good slider then. Like it was just like, okay, let's just see this like in game a little bit more. And then in the winter, I guess, and some of the other guys on this podcast might know a little bit more, but he just had a non-throwing arm injury. And so we didn't get to see him much in 2024, but that just teed up this like really crazy performance last month too, or earlier this month, I should say.
Yeah, Jesperson's obviously a great athlete. Seems like a scout's dream. Scouts even talk about the multi-sport athletes, really liking multi-sport athletes. Vinny, from a scouting perspective, what did you see in Jesperson?
Yeah, so I was a little bit blown away, right? So we kind of heard that Jesperson was like 87 to 90 about a year ago. This was before, so this was in the fall of 2023, and then he had the tricep injury. So it was during a basketball game last year. He plays for Eau Claire Memorial. Phenomenal basketball player, as Andy touched on. I mean, this kid. The rumors are, I mean, it's windmill dunks, 360 dunks type of an athlete. Probably could flood his Twitter page with those kinds of things, but chooses not to. But he tore the tricep tendon off of his bone. Took him a few months to then recover, and then he just showed up at our showcase here in the fall, the Northern Wisconsin Open, and he decided to show us what he could do. Was incredibly impressive. So again, like Andy touched on it, it's there's more in here, right? Because he just showed up and started throwing. It's not like he was on a velo program. It's just that caliber of an athlete, as Andy said, that we're dealing with here. From 87 to 90 a year ago to now 91 to touching 95 on the mound during this bullpen look. I mean, everyone's seen it at this point. How many retweets and follows and likes has that video produced at this point? I can't tell you how hard it is to touch 95 in a bullpen setting without any adrenaline going on. So that's what he did. He spun a disgusting breaking ball as well and a disgusting changeup. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to recall, like, because I had, after that bullpen, I had a bunch of people asking me, like, in text, like, from outside of our organization about him, because he's uncommitted currently. And it wasn't even just college guys. We had some, like, pro scouts, like, just curious about who this kid is, like, where did he come from? And I can't think of a player just in recent memory that, like, my phone was that busy for,
right.
Which just goes to show, I mean, from coast to coast to colleges, like asking about him, like, so that just underscores like how, like, I think special it is, even in just this limited, quick bullpen setting, like how kind of big of an impact you can make for yourself.
Right, and it was strikes as well, right? So, I mean, we've seen at times maybe some guys show up and all of a sudden they show some electric stuff, but maybe it's not anywhere close to the zone. I mean, this was strikes. This was a usable repertoire arsenal. I mean, you would put him on the mound tomorrow and you'd feel pretty good about it, maybe even at the pro level. I told him that after he got off the mound. I said, you're going to get drafted if you continue to do what you just did in front of us. And it was, 15, 20 pitches. And, maybe Fields can even expand further a little bit on that, David, with some of the metrics on that slider.
Yeah, so I ended up looking up the MLB average metrics for a sweeper, which is basically what he was throwing here. So MLB average is 82.2 miles an hour with 1.6 inches of IVB and 14.2 inches of glove side movement horizontal sweep. Jesperson was 76 to 79, 1.2 inches of IVB and 20.1 inches of sweep.
Wow.
This is already close to an above average pitch.
Yeah, I mean, you could hear it. You could hear it spin at the show. Fields and I were sitting behind it, and so was Josh Schoenberg, Showtime. And all three of us were like, you can hear that ball spinning. It was hissing as it was coming in. So just an incredible slider.
Yeah, and for a little bit of context, sweeper is a little bit of a newer term. I don't know if everyone maybe knows the term, but a sweeper, like a slower slider, kind of think of a lateral curveball, and IVB being the induced vertical break or the sort of the downward break on the pitch. But either way, regardless of how you categorize it, an incredible pitch, incredible arm. Although Jesperson hasn't committed, we did have a number of commits over the last couple weeks and some big names coming off the board, particularly in that 2026 class. It's been a little bit slower of a progression for them than in previous years, and there's some newer recruiting rules in place. Andy, you know a lot about the recruiting rules. Could you give our audience a little bit of context with that?
Yeah, for sure. So within the last, not at this past Future Games, which is at the end of July, but in July of 2023, that was really like the first time and place where like some of these new recruiting rules and restrictions went into place when it comes to contacting players prior to their like incoming junior year of high school. When previously, like you'd see all the time, like even elite 8th grade baseball players get verbally commit to these colleges, and essentially the NCAA is just trying to significantly reduce the amount of those types of verbal commitments rolling in and so on. So what they've done is kind of like completely nix the contact between those colleges and these players until that point in time when they were juniors in high school, which happened to coincide with when we run our massive Future Games event down in Georgia every year, where we bring teams from each state. But it just perfectly coincided with the time when those coaches and players can start to communicate with one another. But with that being said, with the now like less, it's just less important, frankly, for these coaches to like know of freshman and sophomore baseball players. They need a little bit more time to essentially know who they're recruiting to begin with, whereas that research would have been done beforehand. So nowadays, like it just will take a little bit more time for these guys to familiarize themselves with these now juniors. So naturally, like there aren't as many commitments coming straight out of like the Future Games, or like it might take the top ranked player in our whatever junior class now a little bit more time to find a commitment, a fit at the next level, which was exactly the case in our class of 2026 with Cal Moreau, who just recently committed. So that's kind of the gist. Is they're just, the coaches are kind of like looking toward the portal like during the summer months at first. So they're just less familiar with these high school guys. So a natural consequence of that is that they just need more time to know who they're recruiting, and these kids are committing a little bit later as a result.
Yeah, Moreau being probably the biggest name that just recently came off the board. Right-handed pitcher, also an infielder, and a pretty good one at that, from Monona Grove. He committed to UCF. Vinny, you've seen Moreau's progression. You've seen him quite extensively over the last couple of years. What can you tell us about Moreau's talents?
Just so impressive. I mean, top-ranked player in the state of Wisconsin currently. Just the athleticism for one, the body and the athleticism for one, just totally jump off the page at you. And then you take a look at what he's able to do both as an arm. I mean, it was electric. He had a nasty slider at the Future Games. It was in the low 90s, sitting there, pretty effortless delivery, just an incredibly quick arm. But then his ability to play short. I mean, you could also probably throw him out in center field as well, and I mean, he'd probably be a plus center fielder. But the ability to play short
too, like he could do anything. It seems like
yeah,
athletically.
Just a great athlete. 6'5", 60, I think he's running.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw a similar type of an athlete from a J.D. Dix, who ended up getting almost $2 million from the Diamondbacks in the draft in last July's draft. I mean, so the athlete is there, not a switch hitter, obviously Cal Moreau, but the athlete is there. The body, like I said, there's more projection to him as well, so he's going to throw harder. The ball is going to continue to jump off of his bat even more so than it already does. And so when he barrels up a baseball, I mean, it jumps off his bat. In the fall, he hit down in Jupiter. He hit a bomb to left field, well over the fence. Is able to go to the opposite field even. So he's got an approach there. So yeah, and then he's going to UCF too. So Rich Wallace. At UCF, just a great coaching staff there. So I think it's a really good fit. I mean, he probably could have gone to really any school that he wanted to. That's how talented that Cal Moreau is, but he chose UCF. I think that is a very good fit. He's going to be able to play most likely right away, and then he's also going to be able to develop and to get to that ceiling, which is, again, incredibly high.
Yeah,
he's currently ranked number 121 nationally but here at Prep Baseball. So a guy that's potentially a future pro guy. And he's someone I remember talking with his dad, and he said that when they knew the recruiting rules were coming into play, they didn't rush. They said, okay, we're gonna stick with the process, continue the progression, and hope that he continues on this path and trust that he's going to get good offers. And I think it's worked out pretty nicely for them.
Yeah. No, I think there are lessons in that for sure. And you could tell talking to Cal down at the Future Games that he was just a really a smart kid. Like he didn't seem like he was under pressure about like the opportunity down there or like to make a quick decision, or like he didn't have his sights necessarily set on, the SEC or something, even though he's that caliber of talent. Like, like the fact of the matter is, like, because he's so good at both sides of the ball right now, like maybe there was like a little bit of like, I don't want to call it hesitancy or something, but like with these like an LSU or something, maybe they would have wanted him to choose a path a little bit earlier than maybe he was comfortable for. But like he is that good on both sides. I don't know what he's going to be. I've seen him really, really good on the mound. Like I think UCF like is a fit in that he'll be able to kind of like take the time to see what he's best at and like just keep doing it until something doesn't work, which I don't know when that'll be. It just seems like it'll continue to be working out for him. So I think that's like something you can take away from that if you're like listening to this and you are uncommitted right now, is like the importance of finding a fit versus like the popularity of maybe the school or the conference and stuff. I think that's a really good example of that.
Yeah, and a couple other future gamers committing recently from that 2026 class: Monty O'Brien, Vince Bitter, Jack Brenner, all to different Division I universities. Fields, I mean, you've seen these guys a lot. You've been around these guys. O'Brien's someone that's progressed a lot over the last year. Was up to 90 at the Futures game, big live-armed lefty. But could you touch on these guys and what sort of impact do you expect them to make in college and touch on their progression a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. Both of these guys, Montgomery O'Brien and Vince Bitter, were guys that we identified in the winter as potential future gamers. And they were guys that we circled and got out to see them right away in the spring, and they keep showing that they just were working hard and getting better after seeing them in the winter. I mean, Montgomery O'Brien is this crafty 6'2" lefty with tons of projection left in the frame. He showed an electric fastball down the Future Games. It was 18 inches of ride and it got up to 90 from about an average release height. And he showed two other pitches, the best being a slider that got up to 80 with tight break. Bitter, on the other hand, is just kind of a pitcher. 3 pitches for a strike. I've seen it up to 90. He's more in like that 86 to 88 in game right now, but the 90's in there in short spurts, but it's 3 pitches for a strike. And it's a go-to pitch right now is his breaking ball.
What's it been like to see O'Brien's progression? Because, I mean, he's someone that he's a great athlete. You could see the upside in it. But then I looked back, and a year ago he was at one of our events or at one of our tournaments, and he was throwing 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, so just seeing that, I mean, having the background we have on this kid now, multiple years of seeing him under our belt, and just like getting right there with him at the future games and like seeing what this kid is all about. Like, I mean, all of us are fans of this kid now after like meeting the kid and knowing what he is at the future games. And honestly, I could bet on him just even improving. Like, but seeing the projection was out of Monty was really cool. I mean, we going into this winter, I didn't see, or going into previous winter, I didn't see what he was gonna. I didn't see this out of him.
Yeah, and what's funny, it's like I don't even know if he did, which was just it was cool to interact with him down at the future games, just because I don't think I don't think he thought, or even his teammates thought, like that he'd touch 90 miles an hour down there. Like there was a bit of a explosion in the dugout when the scoreboard read 90. It was really fun to be a part of. Like I think it kind of shocked everybody in a really like good way. And that kind of just goes to show, I think, that, I mean, he might not cruise right now at 90 miles an hour, but, like, it's clearly in there. So I think Notre Dame has something they can be excited about with O'Brien, just a lefty with really good breaking ball. Like, that was kind of his, like, go-to pitch in my mind at first. But, like, the way the fastball progressed, too, it's like now he could be this special two-pitch guy right now, at least.
Yeah, he's really he impressed me as well down at the future games, Monty O'Brien. I mean, when you look at professional rosters with left-handed arms, I mean, a Monty O'Brien type of a guy, right? Those are just littered with that profile, right? It's a 6-foot lefty with an extremely quick arm and athletic frame. I mean, there's a lot more in there for Monty. He's got a very quick arm. He's going to throw very hard and consistently throw hard. And then I wanted to just touch on Bitter. I mean, the fact that he is very much a starter type of a body and a starter delivery. That's what impressed me mostly about Vince Bitter down at the future games. And I did want to just give, and then also the pitchability as well, and then his demeanor on the mound. I loved what I saw from him in terms of what he's able to show as a future starter at that next level. He's going to Illinois State is a good fit for him. And then I just want to touch on Dimitri Edmonds. I mean, we've been watching this kid for the last 5 years, and he is just an 80 grade person, an 80 grade type of a makeup from Dimitri Edmonds. We've seen him just grow considerably. He's going to Colorado Mesa. That is a very good fit for him as well. Can catch, can play outfield, very good athlete. Ball jumps off his bat. I'm excited to see what he can do at that next level as well.
Yeah, I also wanted, David, real quick, I wanted to mention Jack Brenner, too, just because he committed, like, yesterday. Like, at the time we're recording this, so we weren't totally prepped to talk about him. But he just committed to Kent State. He was also a future gamer for us. Really tough kid. I thought he was another kid that was, like, he just got a great impression from him down at the future games. Yeah. He was super positive because I don't think he was as productive as he wanted to be at the plate. But, I mean, it's a good athletic right-handed swing. He's stronger than like I think you'd first think when looking at him. Like he's a strong kid with bat speed, really athletic defender. He runs for a catcher. Like he can play other positions. He's not just stuck behind the plate. Like I think Kent State that's a good fit for him as well. Like I'm excited for him. So I wanted to mention Jack too real quick.
Good call.
Yeah, another Division I commit, Max Glusick. He's someone from Sun Prairie East, state runner-ups last year that I got to see quite a bit, and he's a winning baseball player. He's someone that I would want on my team. He's very good defender at short, can really field his position, above average runner.
Yeah,
the bat, the contact skills. He can run. Gap to gap power, and it felt like every time in game he just showed up. He was always one of the guys that I think almost quietly was just really good for Sun Prairie East, and one of the players where I kind of looked at that Sun Prairie East team and wondered at times how they were able to achieve as much as they did. There were other teams that had more prospects than them, but I think that was a big reason was having Glusick along with some of the other guys there. But Glusick was really, I would say, one of the glue guys in that lineup, and he's going to UW Milwaukee, so staying in state. Will be reunited with his former teammate John Hadley, who went there. A couple other commits, Braylon Bigler to Upper Iowa. Speaking of good baseball players, someone I would want on my team, great competitor. Bigler going to Upper Iowa, D2 down there. Cullen Kirchberg committed to UW Oshkosh. Brendan Scheel, someone who's got some big pop, going to Winona State. And then a few JUCO guys, Aaron Plauce to Madison, Braylon White to Madison, Mason Summer to Bryant and Stratton, Henry Klatt to Wabash. The JUCO scenario is a little bit interesting because right now with the transfer portal and guys being older, we're starting to see the COVID eligibility die out. But Fields, you're the JUCO expert. So what is the advantage of going to JUCO? How can a player develop more by going the junior college route than maybe, say, going to a Division II school or a Division I school where maybe you might not play as much?
So, yeah, right away, right when you get on the campus at the fall, it's like the differences are clear. Like, you practice every day at a JUCO. You play 20, 30 games at a JUCO in a fall. You're getting about 100, 150 at-bats in the fall. You can't say the same at a NCAA school where the time where you're spent with the coach in the fall is monitored and you only have a certain amount of contact days or even a certain amount of dates to play games in the fall. So right away, just the amount of times you get to go out in the field and play baseball is just a stark difference. On top of the fact that even in the winter, like there's even less restrictions. Like you're getting a lot of reps, you're getting more physical, you're getting stronger, and that's basically all what these guys need that we said. Like they just need reps and they need more at-bats.
Speaking with some JUCO guys this fall, Fields, like I was just curious. I kind of asked them the same question, and I think they mentioned to me, like, don't underestimate like the quality of the at-bats too. Like they're getting a massive amount of at-bats just because it's not quite as like restricted. But you know, at these D1s, the energy is a little bit different when it's like you're facing a guy, a teammate, you know, in this scrimmage like on your field versus like at the Puma Classic and at Grand Park in Indiana, like every fall, like they're playing as Division I junior colleges or whatever, these high-level junior colleges playing against each other. So like the energy there, it's like a very competitive, like try to win, like atmosphere, and like the quality of that at bat and like how much you get out of it as just a, you know, freshman, like that probably means a little bit more to your development than, you know, facing the same guy, you know, for the 40th time that week or something like that. So that stuck out to me too, is like worth reiterating.
Yeah, and if I've learned anything in my time at prep baseball, it's to find your fit, right, Vinny?
Oh, without a doubt. I talk about it all the time, not only in the showcase setting before we kick it off in my pre-showcase speech, but just talking about just, you know, find that great fit. I played Division III baseball. You just never know how you're going to develop, but you have to play in order to develop. You have to play baseball in order to get better at baseball. That just, it goes without saying, really, but I mean, it's just kind of something that needs to be said because there's so many players out there that want to make it, you know, D1 or bust. But you see on this list how talented some of these names are that we just rattled off, and some of them are, you know, they're going to a D2 or going to a JUCO or going to a very good D3 program. You know, there's a ton of them around the state here in Wisconsin. So yeah, find that good fit and try to play as much baseball as you can. Do everything you can to develop. Do something every single day. Go home from practice and practice. That's what I tell players as well. That's what I used to do. But yeah, have that passion in your heart. Find a good fit and get to that ceiling. Got to find a good fit to do so, though.
Yeah, and there are a few players in the senior class who recently decommitted from their previous commitments. Ryan Brennecke being the top one of the best arms in the 2025 class. He was committed to South Carolina, but reopened his recruitment. Lauren Georger and Caden Connor also doing the same. Brennecke is someone we've seen a lot. He was actually the first arm I saw in my coverage this spring, which set a pretty high standard for me, I will say. He was up to 93 that game. But, Vinny, you've seen the progression for Brennecke, obviously high-level arm, ranked nationally. Why should a big-time program go out and get Brennecke now that he's available once again?
Well, you talk about a lefty with a starter's kit profile type of thing. So it's, you know, the fastball is consistently in the low 90s. He's got 3 pitches. He's got a sharp breaking ball, a top to bottom curveball that he can throw. There's some deception to what he can do with the fastball, so it plays up a little bit. He definitely gets swings and misses at the top of the zone with that pitch. But yeah, I mean, he repeats his delivery. There is going to be schools, and the rumors are that there are already so many schools that are after this kid. Decommitting from South Carolina. It didn't sound like it was just going to be a great fit. Talk about finding that great fit. So Brennecke's going to land on his feet wherever he does. He's going to be an asset to the program that he lands to.
Fields, with Brennecke or with Connor and Georgia, I mean, you've seen these guys, and Andy, I want to ask you too because you've seen these guys plenty. What do you see in any of these three as reasons to go out and get them if you are a program?
I think I can go first here. Starting with Brennecke, I just want to emphasize how different the strikes can be. Like, he already has just at will command of his fastball to both sides of the play, just throughout the zone. There's a shot that he could get to there with his other two secondary pitches, and then you're talking about something different. Mm-hmm. Caden Connors, we really like Caden Connor here. Xavier decommit earlier in the fall, bats a ball, third baseman with quality actions there. Should be able to stick there maybe. Otherwise, second base, he could play that in a pinch. Lauren Georgia was another one of our future gamers in 2025. He was a Baylor commit. He had a big breaking ball, big fastball breaking ball, 2 pitches there. And it seems like it was just not another good fit. The pitches are still there. Like, he still has the big breaking ball that is a swing and miss pitch offering. Fastball plays off of it, so yeah.
Yeah, and actually, these decommitments kind of remind me of just like going back to the NCAA rules changes, restrictions. Right. There's just like so much cloudiness over like the lay of the land here that I think is kind of like it's just making things messy. I think for the coaches too, it's like making their lives a little harder. Like now they're scouting the portal a little bit more thoroughly, and they're looking for more like sure things, I guess, which like. It doesn't matter what kind of like prep baseball player you are. Like high school baseball players are younger. Like you're not sure things, and portal players are. So at some of these other programs, like that's kind of the tiebreaker is like the older kid who's done it before, which just makes like their lives harder. So I mean, these decommitments are like it's sad. Like it's just tough. I'm sure the schools themselves would tell you that in certain cases too. Like they probably don't want to lose these kids either, but. It seems like roster sizes are going to be smaller when these kids come to campus in the fall, which is a new thing as well. So, yeah, it just makes the recruiting process tougher for these guys, which, you know, I empathize with them for that. But just like these, like Josh and Vinny said, like, I mean, there's a ton of talent here. Like Brian Brennecke, Caden Connor, Lauren Georgia, they're not going to have any shortage of, like, interest, I don't think, on their hands. So that's kind of a silver lining of this. Gives them an opportunity to find another fit.
And Andy, it's not an indictment on the type of, and I think that's what you're alluding to as well. Mm-hmm. So it's not an indictment on the type of prospect that these kids are. I mean, schools, some of these kids have just gotten squeezed out, quite frankly, just because of the portal. Maybe they had a couple of kids transfer in. Like you said, maybe that's going to be the tiebreaker between which kids are going to be a better fit for that coach in that program. And so now these kids that do decommit are going to have another opportunity at some point somewhere. And again, that is an opportunity for them to do some introspection and say, okay, where can I go to further my development? What's the best place that I can land? Where can I land to further my development? So, you know, at the end of the day, hopefully it's going to be a good thing for some of these decommits.
Yeah, well, and I think with Brennecke too, there was even like a coaching change involved with that one. Right. So it's, and I think that is a point to consider as well of like during your own recruiting process, like keeping doors open, even if you do commit. Like you just never know what's going to happen. This coach moves to this place, he's looking for players, and now you kind of have that door open for you elsewhere. Or like I just think like being as respectful as possible with like everyone's time, like it's only going to help yourself out in the end. Like you'll just create more opportunities for yourself down the road that you didn't even consider, I think.
That's a good point.
Yeah, one other piece of big recruiting news in Wisconsin, Maddux Lessard reclassifying to the 2026 class. He was previously our top-ranked player in the 2027 class. He's a very talented catcher from Muskego. And now that he's in the 2026 class, a little bit of an interesting case. He's younger than most. He's actually he was old for his class in 2027, but in 2026 now younger than most. Andy, I'll start with you because I know that you talk about Lessard a lot. What are the benefits for someone like him reclassifying to the 2026 class? Because I know, like, if I were a player, I was not near good enough to be in the 2019 class if I would have reclassed up. So what are the benefits for that?
Yeah, you just get some reps against older kids, and like there's especially like the pro scouts, like there are some model friendly like elements to that where like okay, like now you're competing against players a year older than you and you're thriving, like okay, all of a sudden like there's a little bit more physical projection stuff in there, like that excites like the professional side of things. But with Lessard too, like he actually does have some experience playing up levels as well, like he did so at times in 2023 and I think 2024 as well. Like so there is some like level of like familiarity there in terms of like he has reps against older players as it is, so he won't be like completely new to playing against 2026s. It does make our life harder though, just in terms of like rankings, because our 2026 class is pretty special at the top. I think like we talked about Cal Moreau already, and the two guys next to Moreau that stand out, like Ben Kuglich and Dom Santarelli, are just like also ranked very highly nationally. And we're just like, we've been talking about it for a few weeks now, just where does Lessard fit in here? But he's a special kid, works ridiculously hard. I think everybody that knows him or has been around him would tell you that. And we've seen him really, really good behind the plate, which is another just huge piece to this. Like it's so hard to find good catching out there in high school, and like he is capable of that. He's a strong kid, right-handed hitter with like power. So it's tough. It'll be tough to like slot him into the 2026 rankings, but I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Fields, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. I mean, it's a right catcher that can catch with pop. So there's a profile there. It's a tougher one to get drafted, but these guys do go in the draft. Like Nick Montgomery, I believe, was one of them that just went recently. But yeah, he's gonna be one of the younger guys in the class, so that's gonna help him a lot. That's just like another notch in his little belt that he can like. You can just add to the equation here. Like, believe he's 16 in 6 months.
Yeah, definitely.
Most of these guys are already 17, turning 18.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely to reiterate Andy's point about just how hard it makes our lives because, yeah, I agree. This is a special 2026 class. I mean, Cal Moreau, Dom Santarelli, Ben Kuglich, Colton Semmelman, Chance Ruby all of a sudden came onto the scene and just had an unbelievable showing at the future games. I mean, not only the talent, not only the raw talent, but just the way that he plays the game and just the refinement as to which he plays the game. So that is a special player. Winston Alonso can really hit. You got Brett Beyondich as well. So, I mean, where does he slot in there? We're gonna have some, I think, fist fights over that probably here between the three of us here in these next couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, he fits in there, though. That's the other thing. I mean, he's the youngest player in the class at this point, and he fits in that mix somewhere. I mean, it's a right-handed hitting, power-hitting catcher. I saw this kid when I first took this job, what was it, 3 years ago, and he was playing on the same team as Ben Kuglich at the Rock, and I said, look, Andy, come over here. Take a look at this kid's bat speed. I mean, so he had this ever since he was in middle school. And so he had this kind of ability, this kind of hand speed, this kind of talent. And so, I mean, and talk about his work ethic. He's only improved from there, and he's continuing to get stronger. He's continuing to refine the abilities behind the plate. I thought he handled himself exceptionally well behind the plate defensively at the future games, considering the arms that he was catching were very good, right? And so sometimes you're catching these guys that have adrenaline going and not necessarily putting the pitches where you want to put them. And that's the hardest level to catch, right? When there's stuff, but not a ton of command and refinement, although The Wisconsin guys were actually really good with that. But, I mean, I thought he handled himself exceptionally well behind the plate. He threw out a couple of runners that were trying to steal third base. I thought the throwing was very, very impressive in between innings. And then, again, when you saw some of the guys trying to steal against him, was against some of the teams that Team Wisconsin played against. So he fits in here somewhere. This is going to be an interesting conversation, or continuing conversations that we have going forward as to where he's going to end up ranking. But, yeah, it's an exciting 26 class, and now Maddux Lessard is part of that.
Yeah, he had a great spring too, actually. Just like, because I just real quick, you always think like, I know I've done this in the past where you assume like these high-level freshmen will just hit the ground running in high school, and it isn't always the case. I mean, that's probably just unfair to expect that. Like, and eventually they are as good as you expect them to be, but they struggle as freshmen. But with Lessard, he was excellent at Muskego right away, and I think that's actually something to factor in here as well.
Yeah, Lessard has been pretty impressive at any level, and he will be in the 2026 class, one of the top players there, but does certainly make for a tough conversation. Before we finish, we have a new segment that we wanted to launch called the Rotino Report. Maybe you've seen it on Twitter before, Vinny, highlighting some uncommitted players. So that's what we're going to do here, a short highlight, short feature on an uncommitted player that stands out to Vinny, and we're calling it the Rotino Report. So, Vinny, who's today's player that you're highlighting?
Well, so the guy that I wanted to talk about real quickly was one of the top-ranked 2025 players, still uncommitted. I'm a big believer in this kid, but it's Jack Zeller. So Jack, he is so he can really hit, right? So it's a left-handed bat. So he's got that short, compact swing. There's a ton of balance here. It's one of those prototypical Racine hitters type of a swing where he's just going to barrel up balls to all fields. There's a pure hitter in here, and then the defense. I actually think it's a pretty good defender at second base. I think I could see him and envision him going over to third base. But if you needed him to go out and play left field, he certainly could do that. A 7.09 runner. So again, I'm surprised that he is still uncommitted. But wherever he does land, if it's at a mid-major, if it's at a high-level JUCO, he is going to be a very pleasant surprise for wherever he lands. I'm very excited to see what happens here with Zeller, and I think this kid, the future is very bright for this kid because he's got a great head on his shoulders as well.
We've had a lot of news to go through. I don't know if every week will necessarily be this news heavy, but obviously a lot that we wanted to break down, and of course, 3 other people on this call know baseball and know these players better than probably anyone walking this planet. So always great to talk about some of the top players in each class. We touched on 25, 26, 27, and even a little bit of 28. But with that said, we're going to end the episode today, the first episode, and we'll have a new one next week. So be on the lookout on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, we'll leave you with this. Let's finally bring back Badger baseball.